My message today is digestion. Do we have it yet? Oh boy. It always starts like this and eventually it'll turn on okay. Let's wait and see.
It's digesting, Terry.
There we go. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm an electrical engineer, but I sometimes hate electronics. Our message today is digestion, in particular that of fruits, vegetables, animal protein, and fats. Prior topics have included the bullseye for our diet, superfoods, water, alcohol, rest and sleep, exercise, my sugar addiction, and bread. Digestion is the breakdown of large insoluble food molecules into small water-soluble food molecules so that they can be absorbed into the watery blood plasma. These smaller substances are absorbed through the small intestine into the bloodstream. Digestion is a form of catabolism. There we go. That is often divided into two processes based on how food is broken down: mechanical and or chemical digestion. The term mechanical digestion refers to the physical breakdown of large pieces, which can subsequently be accessed by digestive enzymes. In chemical digestion, enzymes break down food into the small molecules the body can use. In the human digestive system, food enters the mouth and mechanical digestion of the food starts by the action of mastication, chewing, a form of mechanical digestion, and the wetting contact of saliva. Saliva, a liquid secreted by the salivary glands, contains salivary amylase, an enzyme which starts the digestion of starch in the food. The saliva also contains mucus, which lubricates the food, and hydrogen carbonate, which provides the ideal conditions of pH, or partial of hydrogen, making it alkaline for amylase to work. After undergoing mastication and starch digestion, the food will be in the form of a small round slurry mass called a bolus. It will then travel down the esophagus and into the stomach by the action of peristalsis. Gastric juice in the stomach starts protein digestion. Gastric juice mainly contains hydrochloric acid and pepsin. As the first two chemicals may damage the stomach wall, mucus is secreted by the stomach, providing a slimy layer that acts as a shield against the damaging effects of the chemicals. At the same time, protein digestion is occurring. Mechanical mixing occurs by peristalsis, which is waves of muscular contractions that move along the stomach wall. This allows the mass of food to further mix with the digestive enzymes. After some time, typically 1 to 2 hours in humans, the resulting thick liquid is called chyme. When the pyloric sphincter valve opens, chyme enters the duodenum, where it mixes with digestive enzymes from the pancreas and bile juice from the liver, then passes through the small intestine, in which digestion continues. When the chyme is fully digested, it is absorbed into the blood. 95% of the nutrient absorption occurs in the small intestine. Water and minerals are reabsorbed back into the blood in the colon, the large intestine. In the compilation of Ellen G. White Writings, Counsels on Diet and Foods, on page 112, we read, "It is not well to eat fruit and vegetables at the same meal." Do you remember on the first of this series where we asked the question, can you identify a fruit and a vegetable? This is why it's going to be important. If the digestion is feeble, the use of both will often cause distress and inability to put forth mental effort. It is better to have the fruit at one meal and the vegetables at another. In letter 312 of 1908, she also wrote that fruit and vegetables taken at one meal produce acidity of the stomach. Then impurity of the blood results, and the mind is not clear because the digestion is imperfect. And again, in Letters and Manuscripts, volume 16, letter 145 of 1901, she wrote, "If fruit is eaten, it may be best not to eat vegetables, for fruit and vegetables often quarrel in the stomach." A review of digestive enzymes could become very complicated and confusing, but we will only discuss this at a concept level to avoid this confusion. There are only 3 families of enzymes available to digest foods: saliva, that moistens the food in the mouth and begins the digestion of grains; a family of enzymes that primarily digest fruit; and a family of enzymes that are used to digest vegetables. Saliva is compatible with fruit digesting enzymes. Saliva is also compatible with the vegetable digesting enzymes. But the fruit digesting enzymes and the vegetable digesting enzymes are incompatible, producing gas, bloating, and burping. The vegetable digesting enzymes require the presence of another chemical, a catalyst, in order to properly function. That catalyst is stomach acid, primarily hydrochloric acid. A catalyst is a substance present in small amounts relative to the reactants, the enzyme, that modifies and especially increases the rate of chemical reaction without being consumed in the process. Only a little amount is required to be present to activate the vegetable digesting enzymes. How is the body to digest proteins, especially animal flesh proteins? Saliva is not suitable. Fruit digesting enzymes are not capable. Vegetable digesting enzymes lack the ability. The digestive system reaches for the only thing left, the catalyst that enables the vegetable digesting enzymes, the stomach acid, hydrochloric acid. And this it needs in much higher quantities than necessary for vegetable digestion. Now the stomach has to protect itself from the effects of much higher stomach acid levels. Cells in the stomach produce bicarbonate, a base, to buffer the fluid, ensuring that it does not become too acidic. These cells also produce mucus, which forms a viscous physical barrier to prevent gastric acid from damaging the stomach. Remember from our discussion regarding bread making that when an acid and a base combine, they produce gas and a chemical salt. which is an irritant to the digestive system. How does this affect the pH of the blood? pH stands for potential of hydrogen. Your blood has a normal pH range of 7.35 to 7.45. This means that blood is naturally slightly alkaline. If your blood pH remains lower than 7 pH, this is called physiological acidosis, or higher than 7.8, which is alkalosis, you die. In comparison, your stomach acid has a pH of around 1.5 to 3.5. This makes it strongly acidic. The parietal cell, which makes the stomach acid, also releases alkaline bicarbonate into the bloodstream in the process, which causes a temporary rise of pH in the blood, known as an alkaline tide. Alkaline tide refers to a condition normally encountered after eating a meal of flesh meat, where during the production of hydrochloric acid by parietal cells in the stomach, the parietal cells secrete bicarbonate ions across their basolateral membranes and into the blood, causing a temporary increase in pH. The alkaline tide following a meal lasts until the acids in food absorbed in the small intestine reunite with the bicarbonate that was produced when the food was in the stomach. Thus, alkaline tide is self-limited and normally lasts less than 2 hours. The alkaline tide has also been shown to be a causative agent of calcium oxalate urinary stones in cats and potentially in other species, including ourselves. In Leviticus 7, verse 22 and 23, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, you shall not eat any fat of ox or sheep or goat." Reading from Leviticus 1:1. Now the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tabernacle of meeting, saying, and continuing in chapter 3, verse 17, "This shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations. In all your dwellings you shall eat neither fat nor blood." Do any of you remember an earlier time in the Bible when God said not to eat fat or blood? After the flood, when the flood waters went away and Noah and his family were to come out of the ark and to bring the animals out of the ark, there were no vegetables. There were no fruit trees. They were told that they could eat of the animals as long as they did not eat the fat nor the blood. I would be remiss if I did not at least discuss the concern with the vegan Impossible Burger. This is where I touch you. The key ingredient providing the meaty taste in a textured wheat-based Impossible Burger is soy leg hemoglobin. Does that sound similar to the common hemoglobin term we use to label animal blood? Well, it is. However, this leg hemoglobin is produced by fermentation using a bioengineered fungus labeled Pistacia pastoris to produce blood fluid rather than alcohol. The United States Food and Drug Administration did require and review laboratory testing on rats that was performed by the Impossible Corporation. Despite several biological concerns found in the autopsies of the rats, the U.S. FDA did approve leg hemoglobin as safe for human consumption. However, a higher authority, our God, has told us not to eat meat with blood or fat. The typical ground beef used to make hamburgers contains 30% fat. Realize that ground beef is made primarily from the trimmings of animal muscle tissue. These trimmings are primarily simply fat. Ground beef typically has only 0.3% blood, simply because the blood is drained from the animal during the slaughtering process. The Impossible Burger has 14 grams or 18% fat, primarily from coconut oil and sunflower oil. Also, the Impossible Burger has less than 2% leg hemoglobin, which is more than 6 times the blood fluid found in regular ground beef. The meaty taste of Impossible Burger comes primarily from fats and synthetic blood fluid. I and my family have decided to not eat the Impossible Burger product based upon the word of our God. You may be wondering where that little 3-letter leg comes in the front of hemoglobin. That's from legumes, beans. That's where it comes from. So it's differentiating it from animal hemoglobin by simply adding the leg phrase to the front of it. When in doubt, do nothing, or do without. A plain diet free from spices and flesh meats and grease of all kinds would prove a blessing to you. And going on, Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, your appetites are morbid, and because you do not relish a plain, simple diet composed of unbolted wheat flour, vegetables, and fruits, prepared without spices or grease, you are continually transgressing the laws which God has established in your system. When you buy a car, you're given instructions on how to care for that car. Change the oil regularly. Change the antifreeze occasionally. Change the tires when they wear out. If you don't do this, your car stops running. If you put the wrong fluid in the engine instead of oil, if you put antifreeze in the oil, the engine stops running. So I go back to this counsel from Testimonies for the Church. While we do this, we must suffer the penalty. For to every transgression is affixed a penalty. Yet you wonder at your continued poor health. Be assured that God will not work a miracle to save you from the result of your own course of action. Digestion of some fats can begin in the mouth, where lingual lipase breaks down some short-chain lipids into diglycerides. However, fats are mainly digested in the small intestine. The presence of fat in the small intestine produces hormones that stimulate the release of pancreatic lipase from the pancreas and bile from the liver, which helps in the emulsification of fats for absorption of fatty acids. Complete digestion of one molecule of fat, a triglyceride, results a mixture of fatty acids, mono and diglycerides, as well as some undigested triglycerides, but no free glycerol molecules. Our next topic is, what kind of animal are you? Are you a herbivore? A herbivore is an animal that gets its nutrition from eating plants and only plants. Many herbivores have special digestive systems that let them digest all kinds of plants, including grasses. As originally created by God, both man and all the animals were herbivores. No animal killed and ate another animal. Are you a carnivore? An animal that feeds on the flesh of other animals. After the flood, God did add that every living thing that lives shall be food for you. But again, with some restrictions, such as not eating unclean animals, nor animals that have died of their own accord, nor eating the blood or fat therein. Maybe we are omnivores, eating both plants and animal flesh. Let's look at some characteristics of carnivore animals, comparing them to those of the human animal. If we look at the mouth of a common carnivore, the dog, we see several characteristics that are different between it and a human. The opening of the mouth of a dog is much greater and wider than the human mouth can open. The walled-in oral cavity of a herbivore has the ability to greatly expand during eating. Herbivores carefully and methodically chew their food by pushing it with their tongue and facial muscles back and forth between their teeth for grinding or milling. This thorough process is necessary to mechanically disrupt plant cells in order to release the digestible intercellular content and mix it with the saliva. Carnivores' teeth are separated. The incisors are small. The canines are quite long and dagger-like. The molars are flattened and triangular with jagged edges functioning like serrated blades. Herbivore teeth share common structural features. The incisors are wide and flattened and rectangular. The canine teeth may be small as in the horse, prominent as in hippos, pigs, and some primates, or completely absent. In general, the molars are square and flattened on top to provide a grinding surface. The molars do not glide side by side vertically in a slicing motion, but glide across one another horizontally to crush and grind. Carnivores have claws, sharp front teeth capable of subduing prey, and no flat molars for chewing. Herbivores have no claws or sharp front teeth capable of subduing prey, but they have flat molars for chewing. Humans have the same characteristics of teeth and claws as herbivores. The saliva of carnivores does not contain digestive enzymes. Instead, it is acidic. When a carnivorous mammal greedily swallows the food, it does it so fast that it does not even chew. Since the enzymes for protein digestion cannot be released inside the mouth because of the danger of destroying the oral cavity, what we would call autodigestion, carnivores do not need to mix their food with saliva. They simply bite off huge chunks of meat and swallow them whole without crushing. The saliva of herbivores is alkaline, which helps predigest plant foods. Human saliva is alkaline. The main muscle that moves the jaw of the carnivore is the temporalis muscle. When you pet a dog, you are petting its temporalis muscle. The jaw of all mammalian carnivores is simply a hinge joint in line with the teeth. When the jaws close, the blade-shaped molars glide toward each other, creating an ideal mechanism for tearing flesh from bone. In herbivores, the jaw joint is located in a position above the teeth, allowing the complex jaw motions needed when chewing plant foods. Do you see a designer here? I certainly do. This is almost like a drawing of what this human machine should work like. In comparing the characteristics of carnivores, omnivores, taking the bear as an example, herbivores and humans, we see strong correlations among the physical attributes. Carnivores and omnivores have claws. Herbivores and humans do not. Carnivores sweat through their tongue. They have no sweat glands or pores. Herbivores and humans sweat through the pores of the skin. Carnivores have sharp fangs for tearing. Neither do humans. Carnivores do not have flat molars for grinding. Herbivores and humans do. Carnivores have small salivary glands, which are not necessary for predigestion of grains and fruits. Herbivores and humans have well-developed salivary glands for predigestion of grains and fruits. Carnivores have strong hydrochloric acid in the stomach to digest meat. The stomach acid in herbivores and in humans is 20 times weaker. Carnivores have smooth intestines that are 3 times the body length. A shorter, smoother, and thus faster transit of flesh meat means less time for putrefaction. Herbivores and humans have bumpy and pouch-like intestines that are 6 times the length of the body, providing more time for the digestion of plant fibers, but also more time for putrefaction of flesh, meats, oils, and fats. The obvious conclusion from the anatomical features is that humans are herbivores that are designed, created by God, to eat and efficiently digest plant foods such as fruits, herbs, and grains. The diet of animal flesh meat is unnatural for humans. But we are told that we need protein to build strong muscles. Eating animal flesh to get protein is like buying a finished house, demolishing it through digestion, and then building your new house using the residue of the first house. It will never be as complete as the original source. Herbivore animals, including humans, make protein from the building block materials found in plants, while carnivores reprocess protein from herbivore animals that they have eaten. Our health and temperance topic next is cholesterol, and also addressing statins, the modern chemical drug method of reducing high cholesterol. As my source material, I am using 3 articles written by Dr. Milton G. Crane, including the role of cholesterol and excess fat in disease. He is a well-respected medical doctor with credentials that include Emeritus Professor of Medicine at the Loma Linda University School of Medicine, Medical Director of Weimer Institute from 1982 through 1987, and the Director of Medical Research at Weimer's New Start Lifestyle Center. 150 years ago, anesthetics were not used. The nursing profession as we know it did not exist. 100 years ago, doctors did not use masks or rubber gloves during surgery. Pneumonia, influenza, gastroenteritis, tuberculosis, and other infections caused over half the deaths. And these would be considered preventable deaths with our present medical capabilities. The use of antibiotics, vaccines, and the advent of scientific medicine has reshaped the entire health world. And now we can see what the consequences are of our faulty lifestyle. In our time, we suffer from preventable diseases of a different order. We suffer premature deaths from heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, and cancer. In addition to these, many more of our non-fatal medical ailments can be traced to a faulty diet and a sedentary lifestyle. Ailments such as degenerative arthritis, herniated discs, hemorrhoids, diverticulosis of the colon may cause discomfort and pain, but they are not serious enough to cause death. Of the dietary factors that cause these degenerative diseases, we can name two that are the main culprits: animal products and refined foods. Most animal products, such as flesh foods, milk and eggs, are high in fat, contain variable quantities of cholesterol, are low in carbohydrate, and have no fiber. This is just the opposite of the contents of plant products. Most nutritionists have no trouble recognizing the deleterious effects of refined sugar and refined cereals on our health. For many of them, though, this concern against empty calories does not seem to extend to the refined fats such as oil, margarine, and shortening. But let us look at the potential role of excess fat in disease states and try to fathom how the harm is done. Chemists say that cholesterol is a phenanthrene ring of carbon with some hydrogen and oxygen atoms. As one young student described it, it is dihydroxy dimethyl chicken wire. As we can see from its shape, in its natural state, it is a white crystalline substance that under magnification looks like broken panes of glass. But in the blood plasma, it is a waxy substance and is present in all animal tissue. When we put fat in the mouth, a signal from inside the mouth or stomach tells the liver, hey, here comes some greasy, oily stuff. Get ready, make some soap. The liver takes two carbon atoms, a two-carbon atom complex called acetate, and makes the entire chemical ring of cholesterol. In fact, as you are reading this, your liver is making 50 quintillion molecules of cholesterol per second. That is 50 with 15 zeros behind it. Statin drugs reduce the amount of cholesterol made by the liver, even though the digestion process continues to need it. About 70% of this cholesterol is converted into bile salts, which are the emulsifying agents. These go down the bile duct into the small bowel. The primary bile acids are derived from cholesterol in the liver. The secondary bile acids are further modified by bacteria in the intestine. They play an important role in the digestion and absorption of fat by breaking the globules of fat that we eat into fat droplets that are small enough to digest. This process is called emulsification. It is similar to the role that a detergent plays in disrupting the surface tension of water and oils as we wash dishes after a meal. Remember that when cholesterol is in suspension in the liquid blood plasma, it is a sticky substance. This is not a problem if the cholesterol molecules are traveling down the middle of the stream, but when there are more cholesterol molecules, the cholesterol molecules bounce off each other and occasionally stick to the walls of the blood vessel. As we follow the digestion of food from the stomach down the digestive tract, we notice that all of the fat has to be emulsified to keep it out of the way so the enzymes can digest the protein and starch as well as to get at the fat itself to digest it. But when using statins to reduce the cholesterol produced by the liver, This digestion of protein, starch, and fat is restricted. As the emulsified fat moves along the intestines, it is normally disassembled into its components of fatty acids and glycerol. These are absorbed by the intestinal wall and reconstructed into little balls of fat called chylomicrons. These enter the circulation and make their way in the blood to the liver. There are big ones, the chylomicrons. The big ones, the chylomicrons, are screened out and made into small balls called low-density lipoprotein, LDL. You've probably heard of that. These consist of triglycerides, cholesterol, phospholipids, and proteins. Phospholipids and protein, designed in such a way that the cells can use them for their protein, fat, and lecithin needs. These float along in the bloodstream until the cells of the hard-working arteries need them for nutrition. Every time the pulse wave comes down from the heart, the artery dilates under the pressure. It must then contract down by muscle power and elastic recoil to its original size. The muscle and elastic cells deeper in the artery wall surrounding the artery send signals to the endothelia cells, which line the inside of the artery. When they need some LDL or VLDL to eat, these endothelial lining cells open a hole and let some of this LDL food go through the artery wall to the deeper cells. The muscle cells and elastic cells in the artery wall eat the LDL particles by engulfing them. They use up the protein, the phospholipid, and the triglyceride. Guess what is left over? Cholesterol. Far too many LDL particles may get into the cells if the blood pressure is too high, or if the concentration of LDL particles is too high in the blood, or if tobacco poisons get down to the artery lining and paralyze the endothelia cells. Cholesterol accumulates in the muscle and elastic cells of the artery. As it accumulates, it forms little crystals. These little crystals are very irritating to the cells. With each pulse wave, they are bent a little on the inside of the cells. All the evidence indicates that they have piezoelectric properties, like a static voltage shock. This is irritating, and the cells become sick from these sharp little grains of sand, cholesterol crystals, in the cells. Some of the cells may swell up, sicken, and die. They form a boil-like lesion on the inside of the artery, as shown in the picture. Some cells respond by putting up a wall of firm, fibrous tissue and even calcium around the irritating little crystals. It has been shown that if animals are fed peanut oil with cholesterol, they develop fibrosis of the artery wall. The artery wall gets thicker and stiffer. On the other hand, if animals are fed coconut oil with cholesterol, they developed atheromase, the boil-like lesions on the inside of the arteries. Coconut oil is not safe either. The good news is that this extra cholesterol can be removed. HDL is a high-density lipoprotein particle which goes to the cell, hooks onto the cholesterol, and takes it back to the liver. After the liver releases the cholesterol from the HDL particle, the cholesterol goes out into the bile canals to the small intestines. Exercise is a prime factor to raise HDL levels in the blood. How does this extra cholesterol that is dumped in the intestine get out of the body? It rides out of the colon on plant fiber and sterols, naturally occurring unsaturated steroid alcohols, typically waxy solids. The cholesterol molecule, the phenanthrene ring, cannot be broken down by the body. It has to be eliminated by the gut. If we eat a high-fat diet, a low-fiber diet, or a low-plant sterol diet, far too much of the cholesterol will be reabsorbed by the small intestines into the bloodstream. In conclusion, to prevent or repair damage from the cholesterol molecule, avoid fats, even fats made from plant oils. Increase plant foods and exercise, which I've talked about before. Our future topics will be dietary fats and oils, herbs and spices, and why will you die? And if you're looking forward, this will be the last of my series, and the series will die also. Thank you.